Let's see.
All right, welcome to the Couples Academy show after Infidelity. My name is Hassani.
And I'm Danielle Pettiford.
And we're here to have another great conversation. It's been a while since we've been doing this live, but I'm glad that we're back in the flow because there's so much to talk about, so many people in need. Listen, infidelity has not slowed down. It is alive and well. And so God has given us a mandate to really begin to share information with people to empower them to get beyond their pain. And that's what we're talking about today. So we're actually live on Instagram. We're live on Facebook.
A deal breaker. Actually, it is a time to actually dig in deep, figure out what went wrong, which way we turned left or right when we should have gone the other way, and get some things back in order. And you will find that many couples who have experienced infidelity, when they do the work, they have a better marriage on the other side of infidelity than they did before, because there were some this right.
Yeah. So today's conversation, we're talking about the affair. Now, even though we're talking about it, we're talking about how you talk about it. You got to understand when it has hit your home.
Because you got to talk about it.
You got to talk about it. And when it comes to your doorstep, a lot of times people try to avoid the conversation. They just want to move forward. They don't want to deal with it. They don't want to be bothered. It's almost like, yes, it happened. You found out, but can we just put it in a box, bury it in the ground, and just move on?
Listen, I think certain personality styles are made that way. You know, it's not always that we don't want to talk about it. And I say we because I'm a type of person where, like, if I've decided I'm not going to deal with something, I'll just pack it up and put it away, right? I'll put it away for the later date. But sometimes those things get, you know, it becomes a mountain, right? It's a mountain of issues that you have swept under the rug. You have to deal with it at some point. But it could be that that person has been trained in a certain way to not deal with things, because if I have to look at this every day, if I have to talk about this every day, I'm going to experience it every day. I'm going to feel it every day. So I'm just going to put it to the side so that I can make the decision to move forward. And
though I understand that people are wired that way, it just doesn't work. Now, that may work on your job. That may work with certain career professions. Like, for instance, into compartment to the battlefield or into you're told to attach your then compromise the integrity of what you're trying to do. So what happens is, if you've been trained in an and it's not the military, maybe use it as an example. If you're trained to do that and it has worked for you, you think, okay, well, guess what? It's a transferable skill, and it will work in this relationship.
Yeah, and it does not. And then there's the flip side of that too, because there are other people on the other side of that spectrum who are more emotional, who flood, right? And so it's like, okay, who am I married to? Like, if I'm the type of person where I'm going to flood and overflow my emotions every time I want to talk about this situation, that is not a method that's going to work either. So we've got to find a middle that works for all personality styles to ensure that the communication is successful, right? There's so many different kinds of communication styles. And so we have to learn the skills to actually discuss and talk about the affair in a way that is productive so that we get the results that we want. Because at the end of the day, what do we all want? To be heard and to be understood, right? So if I'm flooding, I can't believe it, and we can't have a conscious, normal, calm or somewhat analytical conversation about it, I'm shutting down. If I am shut down all the time, unwilling to discuss, it's a brick wall. So we have to find the middle.
And I think what you just said speaks to the dialect, right? If some people are approaching this logically and others are approaching it emotionally, it could be very disconnecting when you're speaking in your own dialect.
And we left out anger. There are anger people too who just every time they talk about it, they can't help but to be seething, angry, mad. And anger shuts people down as well.
Of course. Of course. So if you're the logical one and want to approach it analytically and there's no heart, now I'm feeling like you're cold, you're stone cold, you don't care, and you're not caring about my feelings and emotions. If you're the emotional one and I'm the logical one, it's just like, good God, can we sit down and have a conversation without all of the emotional flooding? And there's a huge disconnect. And now I feel disrespected. I feel unheard. I feel unseen. I feel like you don't understand me. And it's just that we're just different, and we have to know how to show up to such a conversation.
And that's the problem, and this is what we want to get into, y'all, is that we are just different. And if we can understand, how do I communicate about these circumstances with the person that I'm with? Oh my God, leaps and bounds of growth. Because at the end of the day, we do want to be heard and understood. We just feel like we don't know what to do or how to say things to the person we're with. Like, how many times have you said that? I don't know what to say to you. I don't know how to talk to you. You know, it doesn't matter how I say it. If I say it soft, if I say it loud, it doesn't matter. You still feel triggered. So we want to help y'all understand how to communicate with your spouse.
As difficult and as challenging as communication is, period, now you're dealing with something like this. A lot of us don't know how to have a difficult conversation, or what we like to call a courageous conversation. And it requires skill sets. So one of the most important skills that you have to develop if you're going to recover from your affair is you're going to have to learn how to communicate. You got to get back into the rhythm and flow, or learn things that you've never learned before in order to make this thing work. So we want to talk about some of the steps, some of the things that you have to do, right? Because it's important that you know how to do it. But before we do that, we're going to take a quick break because we want to get into the meat of this. We want to take a quick break because, listen, there's a last chance weekend coming up. If you have not been to a last chance weekend, if you're attempting to do this thing on your own, listen, the best of intentions still doesn't produce the results that you're looking for. And we have, for the last number of years, been having couples fly and drive down to Atlanta, Georgia, to spend 3 consecutive days with us, to have an amazing transformational weekend experience. People come from a place of hopelessness, leave with hope. They come from a place of desperation and leave with inspiration. So if you're vacillating back and forth, do I stay, do I go? You don't know what you want to do, how are you going to overcome it? You need to show up at a last chance weekend. So we're going to show this quick commercial and we'll be right back.
My name is Steven. I'm from New York. And coming here, I didn't know what to think. A lot of nervousness on the plane, a lot of nervousness the night before. I talked to a lot of friends and they said that types of therapy like this are raw, they're rough, it's really gonna wring you out emotionally. But Hassani calls this an intensive, and intense is such a better word. They really put you in a place here where you can open up emotionally. They help you to open up emotionally. Right from day one, it goes deep, it's tough, but they're there for you, and then it's a beautiful place to be. So after you put all this exhausting emotional work in, you have a nice place to relax. It's a beautiful property. They make sure that you have a place where you and your spouse can really connect after doing all this work, because you don't want to wait until you're back home to feel comfortable with your spouse again, to really use this work. And so I feel like through the whole thing, yeah, it's been exhausting. It's been difficult, but it's been exactly what I've needed. It's been achievable because of the surroundings, because of the people, wonderful people that helped out. They took care of all of our needs, and literally I've taken so many tools with me that I can bring home to improve my relationship. And I've learned so much about myself. It's not just about improving yourself. Improving your relationship. I've learned how to improve myself, to improve my relationship. And through all the days that we've been here, there's been a real sense of accomplishment with each thing that we've done. And I go into the future with hope because of this intensive.
You just saw an advertisement for the Last Chance Weekend and heard a phenomenal... I need to be talking in the mic. Welcome to the Couples Academy Show. Listen, we're back, guys. You just saw a commercial for the Last Chance Weekend, and you saw an amazing testimonial of a couple who is in a desperate place, came, and they are thriving today, have a little baby girl. Like, they're doing so phenomenally well. And so that's the importance of coming and what you're able to experience on the other side of the affair. So they had to get into some serious conversations, and that's what we're talking about today, how to begin to have those conversations. And I want to go to the first point because I want us to unpack this thing. The first thing that you have to do, Danielle, is you have to learn how to set the stage. Like, setting the stage for this conversation is important. And it kind of makes me think, like, we travel all over the country. We do major conferences, and we have put on events ourselves. Now, before the actual event starts, think about how you have to bring production in the day before. You have to decorate. You have to set the stage. You have to get the audio and the visual together. You have to go through tests and runs and practices. Why? Because the environment has to be conducive for the event that you're trying to have. It all is a part of the experience. And so likewise, setting the stage for such a challenging conversation is critically important, because if you don't know what you're coming into or why you're coming into it, then it's not going to work.
So let me just say this so that we could be clear with the audience. So, there is, the level or the stage where your spouse does not know that you are unfaithful, right? And so it might be within you to confess. You might be feeling the stress and the strain. I need to confess. I need to tell her. And you are terrified, right? We have a solution for that, right? That is our Last Chance Weekend, because it can be terrifying. It can be tumultuous. It can be volatile and violent. And some of you are saying, listen, I'm going to take this secret to my grave. I am never going to tell this person. We have a process that helps you unpack that in a safe environment where you will not have that experience. You'll have a very pleasant, exhilarating, weightlifting experience, right? But then after full disclosure, you still know that there are going to be some conversations that need to be had, right? Sure. There's going to be some clarity that needs to happen, because after full disclosure and everything comes out, it's a lot of information to process. Some of us are process-minded people. Like, I heard what you said, right? But it was just so much information. It was polarizing. And then you get home and you're like, hold on. I got these questions. So that's what you're talking about. Like, okay, how do we continue to have the conversation to get to a place of complete and total healing, where when things come up, when I see something, when I sense something, or when a detail didn't align, I don't have to blow the relationship up all over again. In a triggered state, I can set the stage and have a peaceful, calm conversation. Is that where you're going with this?
Of course. And I think the first part of setting the stage is, to your point, recognizing that it's going to be difficult. Like when you are about to go into a storm and you know a storm is coming, you prepare for that storm. You don't go in with no raincoat, with no umbrella, with no protection. You go in knowing that it's going to be challenging.
Right.
And I think having the right mindset going in is critically important. But here's the challenge, here's the balance to that. Some people are so afraid that they try to resist the inevitable and they actually make matters worse. And this is why, you know what, I don't want to go in there. I don't want to have the conversation. And what happens is their anxiety, trepidation, and fear creates more distrust, more disconnect because and it's just like, I just had a conversation with someone the other day and I said, well, what are you scared of? Well, I told her everything. And I'm like, well, are you sure you told her everything? Yeah, I told her everything. So if you told her everything, what are you scared about if she already knows what you told her? Sometimes having the conversation is for the purpose of clarity. You just used that word, right? So we've talked about this, but it wasn't clear. At the time that you were telling me everything, I was so in my emotions. It was hard to process. You just said we need time to process. So we need to have the conversation again, because now I'm asking from a different perspective. Now I'm not emotionally flooding. Now I want to hear the details. I want to get into the weeds of it. And I need this for my healing. The problem is if you are living in fear, and you're like, well, I wouldn't want to know. You project your own issues on your partner and assume that they wouldn't want to know. And that's where we make the mistake. So understanding the purpose and the goal for the conversation is imperative. It's clarity and it's closure.
I love that. And so when it comes to setting the stage, we got to address, the betrayed and the betrayer separately, right? Because who's setting the stage, right? Now, I know that if it were me and I am approaching a situation, like I just got to full disclosure, I have some more questions. And tonight I need to get into it. I'm at an emotional place, right? I maybe have some suspicions or maybe some dots are not aligning, T's aren't crossed, I's aren't dotted. And I'm like, hold up, he's lying again. Whatever emotions I'm coming to the table with, taking a step back and saying, okay, what is going to get me the result that I want? I think we just don't think that through. Like, you want results. What do you want? You want truth, but you're approaching the person with so much vitriol and venom. You're terrifying them into a corner of self-defense. Anytime anybody is being attacked, if anybody has ever had somebody swing at them, try to knock them upside their head, your first defense is to cover, to protect, right? You protect. And so not to say that they should be hiding any more secrets, but what ends up happening is exactly what Hassani was saying, is that you came at them in such a way they were terrified. They don't know where you're going with this. You came out swinging with blows and they go into their corner and they start protecting, saying as little as possible, omitting details to protect themselves, to protect you. They think they're protecting you from the real truth. It's a volatile situation. So it always pays for even the person who has been betrayed to come composed, to help set a stage that is relaxed, just as relaxed as it was at Last Chance Weekends. If you've experienced it, there is none of that energy is coming in to full disclosure. And so everybody is relaxed in the situation. But then when you go home, the gloves come off and it's a boxing ring.
It's literally a cage fight. Now, back in the day when I was a kid, I used to watch the WWF. I think they call it the WWE now, but all boys watch wrestling. And every so often they would create this ring with a cage and everybody would be thrown in the cage and everybody's fighting and who the last man standing ultimately wins. And that's what these conversations are like. And that's why they do not go well. So to your point, who's setting the stage? This is why you need, and I'm not getting into it now, but this is why you need somebody guiding you through a process, because both partners have their own agenda.
Right.
Like the one who, if they're not in a healthy state, the one who's betrayed wants answers and they want answers now. The one who is the former offender typically doesn't want to talk about it and ducks and dodges and minimizes and skirts the conversation. And so it just doesn't work. And so having a clear understanding of as to why we're having it is important. But listen, truth be told, if I was just cheated on, first of all, I don't know what I want to do. I don't know what my next steps are. I need to get the details and the information to figure it out. But oftentimes when I'm asking the questions, even though the purpose and goal is clarity and closure, listen, I don't I'm not asking you a question because I really want to understand. I'm asking the question with an agenda to remind you of what you did and how painful it was. And now I use it as an opportunity to vent and tell you how wicked and diabolical and how destructive what your actions was. So it becomes, once again, a cage fight.
And that's what happens. This is everything that you're saying is so key. If people could grab onto this, because we're trying to help you avoid these tendencies, because it's exactly what he says. Without having these, rules to abide by, that's exactly how you're going to show up. You're going to lose everything that you were taught in the process, and then you're going to do you. And there's also something I want to say to the betrayer, because in that same environment, you need to come a certain kind of way, knowing that your spouse is going to have continued questions. Your spouse is going to need continued clarification and clarity for you to be open, for you to be contrite. I think what we hear is that afterwards, they're like, look, we did full disclosure. The box is open and closed. Like, we're done with this. We're not talking about this anymore. And so now it's like you have opened up whatever you opened up in the 4 hours or however long it took for you to disclose everything. And then you've cut your spouse off from the ability to gain clarity and understanding about what it is that you disclosed, which they deserve and they need in order for them to have full closure. There are sometimes when, in a regular conversation, it could be, I got things to do today, Danielle. I'm going to go here. I'm going to stop there, here, there, and a third. And then on the way back, I'm going to go to the store and pick up some things. Okay. And so when you come back and you didn't get the things, I'm going to need to know, well, what happened? I thought you were going to go to the store and pick up the things. Oh, well, what happened was this happened and I got delayed on the phone call, blah, blah, blah. We need clarity to understand so that we get closed loops. That's just how we're designed in any circumstance, every situation in your life. That doesn't change when it comes to infidelity. It is exasperated when it comes to infidelity. I need to know more of you. I need you to open up your heart and your brain and your mind at any given moment. When you're sitting there staring quiet and I say, well, what are you thinking about? You need to tell me, what are you thinking about? Because at this point, I just have so much uncertainty. And so both have to come to the table with an overall willingness to be communicative in the best way possible.
Communicative, good word. I like that. Say that again.
Communicative.
Danielle, what you just said is so true. And it's just like the betrayed spouse is hyper vigilant about everything. Because you did
hyper vigilant, that's a good word too. Say that again.
Hyper vigilant. Like, you blew up my world. And I have so many questions. I don't trust you. I don't trust us. I don't trust what we had. I don't trust anything. So if you're 2 minutes late, if you were in the bathroom too long, I don't trust it. If you were supposed to be home at 6 o'clock and you came home at 6:15, I don't trust it. If you went to the supermarket and said you were getting bananas and milk and you came back with a little bit more, I don't trust it.
If you came back with milk and whipped cream, I don't trust it.
Exactly.
You said bananas and milk.
Exactly.
You lied, right? Like everything is intense. Everything is hypervigilance. And so this is why we have to learn because you decided to stay. Let's just go to that, right? You went through the process. You decided that it is within you to overcome this challenge and this difficulty, that you're going to press through, you're going to work it out. So if you've decided that, then learn the tools and tips in order for you to actually do it successful so that you can continue the journey forward. And that's the point. You've got to move forward. After full disclosure, after a last chance weekend, that's not the end. You're not finished. You have to continue to learn to regrow what was destroyed and broken.
First, you got to come to a last chance weekend. So if you look on your screen, December 13th through the 15th here in Atlanta is when we're going to do it. So go to the link in the description, reach out to us, set up a discovery call so we can talk more about it. But let's go to the second point here, the importance of preparing for the conversation, right? So you've probably had this conversation 1,001 times. Now, typically what happens is I ask questions, you give me answers, and I'm like, I don't know about that answer, because you have a tendency to minimize. You have a tendency to
Who has a tendency to
overgeneralize. The person who was unfaithful.
Okay.
generally overgeneralizes. Their answers are very blurry. It's kind of confusing. Every time I talk to you, it's something different. You minimize it. You omit information. So I don't know what to believe, right? So it's important that you understand what we need to do to prepare for the conversation. So some of the things we need to do in terms of preparation, time and place mean everything. You can have the right conversation at the wrong time in the wrong
location,
place, and it does not work.
Doesn't work. A complete and total shutdown.
Daniel, remember when we used to live in New Jersey? I remember we were on the Parkway going north, and there was a couple 2 lanes over from us. And I mean, the guy was driving, the woman was in the passenger seat, and they were in a full-on fight. I mean, this dude was yelling and screaming and spitting and waving his arms, one hand on the steering wheel, the other hand. And I'm like, they are about to crash.
I don't remember that, but I've seen that.
I remember
I've seen that in
like
different many places.
Yesterday.
Wow.
Now, I don't know what they were talking about, but this is an indication of you can't have conversations like this in certain environments because you will destroy everybody.
And that's not a conversation, right? Nobody is communicating when you see somebody hollering, spitting, screaming, pointing. That is somebody who is releasing rage and anger. That's what that is. That is built up, pent up frustration being released at the same time. There was no communication. There was no understanding. There was no clarity given. None of that. So that's not communication. And I think to add on to what Hassani was saying about, like the trickle truth that's coming out, right? Like, it's almost like sometimes the betrayer thinks that it's wise. And I'm saying that because I hear this a lot. Like, I just don't want to hurt them. I'm trying to protect them. They can't handle the truth. They will say as much as they think the betrayed partner can handle. Right? Yeah. And so if the betrayed partner is asking certain questions, they're saying as much as they think they can handle and trickling out truths. And so that is really a very unsafe place for the person to be, because if I don't ask it, I'm not going to know it. When you're trickling out truth. So how am I supposed to know all of the details and all of the questions that I'm supposed to ask you to get to the root, to get to the truth of everything that happened? There's no way I could do that.
And that right there. So I'm the betrayed. I want to know. I ask 1,000 questions. And first of all, you're minimizing it, right? You're only telling me what you think I can handle, but you're answering my questions. But the fact of the matter is, I don't care how many questions I've asked, I don't know every question to ask. So I could be over here, but something happened over here. We never dealt with that. And so I'm still confused. You know what you haven't told me. You're like, whew, they didn't ask that, so they didn't ask.
And your lies are getting more and more confusing, because there's no way you could keep track of all your lies. You're webbing this weave that is tangling your feet. Every time you say something different, your spouse is like, that does not align with what you say, because they're taking great notes.
Oh, they have the memory of an elephant. They remember everything. Not only are they assessing your answers, they're doing their own investigation. Trust and believe. A lot of times, the betrayed spouse knows more than the unfaithful spouse about their own affairs.
So if you're going to do this, tell the truth. And how do you tell the truth? You set the perfect stage. It's all about time and place. Is it in your home? If your home is not a trigger. Because your home could be a trigger if any affair details took place there. Maybe you need to go to a nice hotel. Maybe that's a trigger too. Like, you got to find a place that makes sense. It could be out to dinner to a private place. Me and Hassani, when we go out, we like to find a place that's not overly crowded so we can have conversations. And there are a lot of places, restaurants, and you can go in there and it's great food, and it's a Tuesday night and ain't nobody there but you. You could get yourself into a booth and have a conversation. And the cool thing about having it in public too is it's some kind of a boundary, right?
It is.
Most of us are not going to cut all the way fully up.
You're not going to show your tail.
You're not going to show your whole tail.
Not the whole
in
tail.
Public. In
not
public,
the whole tail.
Not the whole tail, some of the tail. But if you have a nice private space in a public place and you're having dinner, that could be the great place to have that conversation, that full disclosure conversation. But it's all about the time and the place, and then also how you're approaching.
Go to a park, an empty park.
Go to a park.
Because if your volume goes up, nobody's around, nobody can hear it. Now, I'm not giving you a pass to act a fool, but to your point, being in a public place can be very helpful, or being in a secure place within within your home is important. What we always talk about is don't have these conversations in your bedroom, because the bedroom should be a place where you should be sleeping, you should be making love. It's a sanctuary. It's where you pray. Because if you get into an argument or a fight fest in that bedroom, trust and believe there's a negative energy that continues to
Ain't nothing else going on in that bedroom.
That's a fact.
Ain't nothing else going on in that bedroom.
But on top of that, listen, some of your walls are made of paper mache, and you got your children on the other side of that wall, and they eavesdropping what's going on with mom and dad, or you're waking them up from their sleep because you think that they're knocked out, but they're really not, because you have lost the sense of yourself, and it went from 1 decibel to another, and now they know all your stuff, and you want to protect your children from your marriage. And a lot of times we unfortunately play out all of our destruction and give our children a front row seat to our lives and don't realize the damage that we're doing to them. So the place is important, but also the time. Check this out. You can't wake me up at 2 o'clock in the morning because you couldn't sleep, or you woke up from a nightmare, and then expect me to be fully alert and fully compassionate and fully empathetic and engaging in a conversation.
Wake up. On May 18th at 5 p.m., where were you? I just had a vision from God. He said, we do these kinds of things. We do. And the spouse is like, what? You just seeded an argument, the worst argument of your life.
Yeah.
No results.
Yeah.
And that's not what you wanted. You wanted results.
Yeah. You can't have the conversation too late. You can't have it too early. I'm lethargic. I just woke up. I got to get ready for work. Here we are. I got to be at work at 8 o'clock. Right. We're yelling, arguing, fussing and fighting. I'm late. Now I got to get in the car. We're talking about it in the car. I got a meeting at 9. My mind is
messed up. It can't be impromptu.
It can't. This
is not an impromptu type of a situation. Great point. On your way to work, you got a meeting, a presentation, you got to do something, whatever it is, and now your head is just scrambled eggs.
Not in the game.
Because you were woke up at 3 a.m. with some crisis moment.
I got raccoon eyes, bloodshot.
You grabbed the bat because you thought somebody broke in the house, and it was just your spouse saying, "What happened on May 16th?" So it's just crisis over and over and over again. There's a way to do it. So be mindful about time and place, because a reminder, if we had a tip button, we could pop the tip up. At the end of the day, you want results. What are the results? You want understanding and clarity. Yeah. You want to move closer and closer to closure, full closure.
That's right. And then listen, while I'm at work, I know you're thinking about it all day long. Like, I know people who literally will quit their job because they're just not in the mental, emotional space to show up because of all that they're dealing with. So you have all this time in your hands. And as they say, idle time is evil time. So now you feel compelled to have a conversation now, irregardless of what I'm doing or where I'm at. I'm on a plant. I don't have my phone. I don't have access to you. And now you're wondering what I'm doing because work is a trigger. So now you're terror texting me. And now I got to respond, because if I don't respond, it means I don't love you. So I got to disregard the boss. I got to disregard the clients, and I got to show up for you. Now I'm stressed because now finances are being compromised because I can't fully mentally, emotionally, and physically be in my work. Everything is suffering all around me. I know people who've gone to the hospital literally because of stress, because of what is happening in the home. So there's pain on both sides of the fence.
Right. But we got to do this healing process together. You don't get to do it on your own, and that's the point, right? Like, you thought, okay, I'm going to go to this Last Chance weekend, I'm going to recover. You went through the process, you came out of this thing invigorated, and then you go home and you go back to your old ways, and we're trying to help you not to do that so that you can continue to heal. At the end of the day, that you have to do this healing journey together. So we have to begin to accommodate each other's needs and make it make sense. Time and place is a key component.
I want to read this one comment, and then we'll close out for today and continue the conversation tomorrow. It says, "What do I do if my husband is so overwhelmed with shame that he does not want to disclose the finer details of his sexual and emotional affair to me? He wants to avoid hurting me more." And that's a great point. And I think, people lie And people don't like having these conversations because they don't want to further hurt their spouse. I mean, that's a reality. And so this is why it's important to work with someone, because it's our job as in terms of creating the right atmosphere and stage for the conversation, to realize that no matter what he does or doesn't do, he's going to hurt you. If he doesn't talk about it and he lies, he's going to hurt you. If he tells the truth, he's going to hurt you. If he does nothing, he's going to hurt you. So he's trapped between a rock and a hard place. The whole situation is hurtful and painful, but the only way out is to go through it, to confront it. And so this is why people need guidance in this process. Now, when it comes to the emotional and relational affair, it's a painful thing to have to reveal it, because it's like, I got to get naked, I got to bare my soul. But then we're going to talk about, not today, what aspects and details of this emotional sexual affair are worthy of discussing and what may not be, because it can do more harm than good. So this is a great conversation, Danielle. I'm so glad that we're back in the swing of things. Listen, we want you to reach out to us, set up a discovery call, go to our website, couplesacademy.org, or reach out to us at 678-200-8996. We want to be a part of your healing story. But until then, we'll see you tomorrow for another great episode. Love you guys.
See you.
Take care.